Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This last weekend was CitizenCon and it was so much fun to watch, but one of the biggest things they touched on is the flight model. They're redoing the flight model and I'm very excited about it. There's a lot of controversy about it in some cases, but I'm going to tell you why I think it's going to be very good. So for a while now, internally, CIG's been working on this new flight model, mostly for Squadron 42, and it makes a lot of sense. It needs to work in that environment, so they're tweaking it and fixing it there, and at some point they're going to roll this out to the PU. That's probably going to be a really long time because there's a lot of ships out in the PU and there's only a few in Squadron, or at least fewer than the entire PU, which is like over 100 ships now. But this was desperately needed. So throughout the panel, they talked about the future of flight, how they envision it. They also later talked about MFDs and how those tie in. And of course, we all know that eventually the flight control surfaces will come into play again and further adjust the model, at least in atmosphere. So CIG has always classified ships online, but their classifications have been pretty murky at best. So here they've finally clarified exactly what they want to create these ships to be that fit within these classes. So light fighters are focused on 1v1 combat, mainly PvP. Then there's heavy fighters, which are better for longer endurance group fights, and medium fighters, which internally they call multi-role ships because there's a lot of hard points, and so it's a really flexible platform. You can put a bunch of different types of weapon combos on there. However, they won't quite reach that fighting potential of those other two dedicated platforms. Bombers are in a class that include torpedoes, and this is about delivering heavy ordnance to take out much larger ships like capital ships. And interceptors, whose job it is to get to a destination as fast as possible and disable a target. They can fight, but they're not dogfighters. And of course, race ships, which, I mean, they change the direction as fast as possible. That's pretty much all they're about. With these roles, CIG wants each ship to have a purpose and not one ship to just be the best. Even within the role, they don't want one ship to dominate. So what's the problem with current combat? The problem mainly comes down to speed. Because each ship is going so fast, what typically happens is two players are flying at each other and have a brief encounter before their momentum carries them way far away again, almost like a rubber band. And this just happens over and over again. It's not a very interesting fight, it's not very engaging, and half the time you end up fighting against a pip and a radar blip instead of actually engaging in a fight with another ship. In order to achieve what they call slow positional combat, they've tried a lot of soft caps and limits to try to increase handling at a certain speed, but going fast was just so much better, it really didn't happen. So they're moving to a flight model that actually has two modes. One is standard control mode, and the other is quantum control mode. When you're flying in standard control mode, you have access to all the functions of the ship. So that means shields, weapons, countermeasures, speed boost, all this is available. Also, unless you're actively using boost, your ship is going to be hard limited at 300 to 200 meters per second, depending on how the balance plays out and what ship you're flying. Quantum control mode, on the other hand, is all about travel. In quantum control mode, the power from your ship is dumped into the engines and the quantum drive. This unlocks much higher speeds, back to what we're used to, around 1400 meters per second, as well as the ability to quantum jump in a straight line up to 50,000 kilometers. According to in-game lore, the shields, weapons, countermeasures, and anything else leaving your quantum bubble would disrupt it, so that's why it's not accessible in this mode. Whatever the reason is in lore, I think it's a really good compromise and is going to make flying in this game a lot more fun. It means if you're concerned about a fight, you need to go into QCM mode and fly away as fast as you can before anyone else gets close enough to damage you without your shields up. Keep in mind too, when you arrive at your quantum destination, you're also going to not have shields for a little while power is dumped back into your shields. They're not going to be completely gone coming from zero, they're just going to take a few seconds to go back to where they were before you entered QCM. It means that when you actually engage in combat, things are going to be a lot more up close and a lot more personal, which is going to be much more exciting. Later in the broadcast, Chris also mentioned how they're reworking how the HUD and the MFDs play together. So if you're flying a rust bucket, like some Drake Caterpillar, then all of your heads-up display is mostly going to be on your MFDs. But if you're flying a state-of-the-art fighter, then a lot of that information can get pumped to the HUD, and you don't have to actually look down here quite as much. There were a lot of problems when you were flying around and there's 20 other people and you can't even see what you're doing because there's just HUD items everywhere. So they're really taking a step to go clean that out, utilize the MFDs, and think through how they want all those things to interact, which means when you're firing at the enemy, you're mostly going to be firing at their actual ship, seeing the damage you're putting on the ship, and with the resource management system that's coming online as well, that's going to lead to a lot more time to disable instead of just a time to kill. So you're going to watch that wing blow off and see the ship go and crash land instead of just exploding right when it loses all of its hit points. There is a lot of concern in the community about how this is going to affect different aspects of the game, such as racing, or piracy, or if you're cargo running, how can you escape? And a lot of those concerns are justified. If you're trying to escape, a lot of people are wondering, am I going to be able to run away because I'm losing all my shields? And on the other hand, if you're trying to chase somebody down and they're going away from you at 6 or 7 times the speed, how are you supposed to be able to catch them and switch to your weapons and disable them before they just quantum away once they get out of atmosphere or whatever the case may be? This is obviously a really key question and is going to play a lot into how this game actually works for players. And CIG is looking to provide tools for both sides to make this kind of situation really interesting. There are opportunities here for cyber warfare, EMP, devices to prevent the switching of the modes, and especially for CIG to dive into specific ship roles like the Interceptor, who's going to have a higher SCM speed, potentially being able to catch these folks, and a faster time to switch between the modes. So presumably they can go to QCM, catch up, switch a mode, and fire either a piece of equipment or a missile to disable that ship. And again, since the ship won't explode right away, you might have a disabled ship floating in space now, or a wreck on the ground, leading to a lot more that this game can offer than just that flight experience. I think there are 2 things here that are true though. We've got to trust CIG to try to get this balance right, number 1 for Squadron 42, but then 2, we gotta trust our community, because eventually this will be in our hands, and I am sure that we are gonna have feedback. There are some really smart people out there, and you're gonna find ways to exploit this system, and it's gonna lead overall to a better system. But let's let them flesh this out, and then when we get it in our hands, which I hope is soon, because I really want to fly this, I think a good way to implement this might be to take the tunings you have for Squadron 42 and then look at the roles, and just like you did with all of the components where you nerfed them all to be the exact same, do the same thing, and do that with like all cargo ships. Give them a standard and flex the numbers here and there if you want to, but get them just in bulk there, and then we can do tuning as we go. That way we can get it sooner and point out any major flaws if they're there. Overall, these flight model changes are a huge win. I cannot wait to get this in our hands, to fly it. What do you think about this? Do you think splitting these modes up was the right decision, or was this a mistake? I'm really interested, and if I have any of this information wrong or there's something I didn't quite mention, let me know. If you're a cargo runner, do you think you're going to be able to escape? And if you're a pirate, do you think you're going to be able to pirate? I think the answer is actually more on the piracy side. I think they're going to be able to disable a ship and stop you from running. So my concern, probably if I had to choose, comes on the side of the cargo hauling. I think they are going to need some really specific cyber warfare countermeasures, or somebody on their crew, or hire somebody to protect you. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they can buy components that are more resistant to things interfering with quantum. But in any case, this is a really exciting day. To be able to quantum anywhere you want to is going to be amazing. I might have some more reviews for these other things coming up. There was some stuff like the Mobi-Glass change and the scanning and the changes to the UI. I think I do need to make a video about that because I have some pretty strong opinions about them. Some good, some bad. So I'll let you know what I think in the upcoming videos. But thanks for coming by, and I'll see you in the next one.